Hello, everyone. My name is Shola Abulu. I am the principal consultant of Shola Abulu and Associates, and we are a strategy and communications consulting and training firm dedicated to enabling businesses and brands achieve their objectives through strategic communications, organizational effectiveness and reputation, risk management. So I decided to record this video. We had already done this. We had already I had already read. This is as you can see, this is a brochure that had already, or rather a PDF or a mini book that had already been released. Not a mini book actually, just a PDF. And what I'm now doing is I'm just going to run through the presentation that I had prepared and shared on LinkedIn in video form for people, because what we do is that the same content, and that's what we do now. We release it in different forms. So for the people who like to see the carousels, they will see the carousels. For the people who really want like the tutorial sort of form, which is what we're doing now, then we also use that same content to do that. So yeah, and then so this is for the tutorial. So anyway, 7 differences between public relations and communications. The reason why I decided to do this video is because first of all, this is an ongoing conversation. I see that there continues to be a lot of interest in this. Every time we put out a post on the or a video or a recording or a tutorial about the difference between public relations and communications, it always gets a lot of interest because I think that this is something that people, the profession is still beginning to try to get their, wrap our heads around it. And the thing is that it's not a static thing. It's changing. PR is changing as well. Communications is also evolving. Many things are affecting, the way in which we use both how PR and communications are used. And this is a study of the practice. So it's not so much theoretical, it's about what we see. Because at the end of the day, it's not just what this is not about a conversation about what I think it should be. It's about what I see. You understand? So I think that is a good way to put it. So don't look at it that I'm saying it has to be this way. No, I'm saying this is what I see in terms of how PR is being done. So these are my and I want to make a point. We're going to do there's another carousel that will come out, a tutorial about the 7 similarities. So this is 7 differences. You can expect one that will talk about 7 similarities. And my sense of my own general beliefs and my own theology and my framework, my thinking around public relations and communications is that they are two sides of of an extended field, which is called PR and comms, and that each of them serves different purposes, different skills, different competencies, different expertise levels, and they are used for different purposes. And that there are points at which PR will run on its own track, and there are points at which comms will run on its own track, and there are points at which they come together. So if you're working in that space, either as a corporate communications practitioner, development comms, whatever the case may be, public sector, political, you need to know the differences, because if not, you will not know when you need to apply a PR solution to things. If you're heavily comms, most of us tend to go where our normal, our predisposition is. So if you're a comms predisposed person, you are likely to overlook and underestimate or undermine or just ignore the PR opportunities that you have and the things that you must do with a PR approach. And if you're a PR person, you tend to do everything the PR way and not realize that there's some problems or there's some situations that you need comms is better suited to handle. And I will explain that. This is why I started off with the differences first, because I think there's more tension in the differences than in the similarities. It's very easy to pick out the similarities, but the differences, I think, is a little bit, you need to like almost like separating, anyway. So and this is the way I see it in my mind. And because I was a manager for a relatively big comms team for a number of years. So I was able to see this play out in the ways in different skills and competencies of the people within the pool. So a lot of that is based on what I've seen, and also what I've seen since we started running SA&A, and I started working with, seeing just seeing how practitioners and how the practice and the field is developing. So first of all, PR is 100% externally focused. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. Public relations is focused on people outside of the brand, the business, the organization, the institution, whoever it is that is doing the PR. It's about publics. It's about, it's about them and us. No matter how close the them are, they're still outside of you. Whereas in communications, a section of communications, which is internal communications, is directed at employees and people who are privy to confidential information. They are part and parcel of the business and the brand. So for such people, even if you are targeting them as you should with communications, it's not with a PR, because If you are the kind of things that you may say that you can get away with saying to people outside the organization, you can't talk that way to people within the organization because they have just as much information as you that is doing the storytelling. So it has to be a very, very different approach completely, if you know what I mean. And yeah, so it's 100%, a different approach is required. It's greater focus on transparency and authenticity. It's just completely different. Number two, PR tends to focus on good news and spin. It's positive in tone. Anything that you are doing that is not positive in tone, is not PR you are doing, whether traditional. I know some people try to talk about strategic PR, but I have never seen, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I've never seen a situation whereby a PR approach is the best way to handle. For instance, you want to crisis management is going on. And I've seen examples. I'm going to give some example without mentioning him. For instance, I've seen a case, it happened recently in Nigeria, where there was a very tragic incident having to do with security and all of that. And the people who came on a so-called condolence visit, there was a way in which they came that was promotional. They came in vehicles that were branded, promotionally branded. That is so offensive. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's acceptable in any other context. So, but if you are going with a strategic comms mindset, you know that you cannot do that. So they were thinking, and which is why, honestly, public sector Nigeria, they really don't understand the difference between PR and comms. And that's why I keep separating them, particularly because of the public sector, because I think they're the ones who are really struggling to make that transition. And it has become so bad that even in serious situations, they don't know how to draw the line between PR, which is the positive, oh, look at us, look at, even in times when it is totally uncalled for. And as communications perfect, I will continue to say this until the end of time. We must understand the difference between public relations and communication. There's some context in which nobody wants to hear that story about how much you sold, and we are the best thing, sliced bread. But in those situations, that's when strategic communication comes up. When very uncomfortable, maybe something that very bad has happened, you're going to express condolence or whatever. You should not go in a PR whatever thing. It's not about you at that point. Nobody wants to hear about you. But you will show your presence. So it's your presence will be there. You will say what is appropriate. And that's what strategic communication tells you. It gives you a holistic approach to messaging and is excellent at highlighting dilemmas. Now, there's some times when it may not even be a condolence thing, may not be that kind of thing. It may be you just have to share some truths that are hard. You have to share some uncomfortable narratives. And there's no positive spin to it. So communications gives you it's the science and the art of communication. So it shows you how you can pass on this message to these audiences in a way that you get the results that you want, which is either making them feel like you care, making them, maybe there's certain things you need them to do. You want them to support you or collaborate with you in resolving that matter or work with you, so, but the message is an uncomfortable one. It may even require you acknowledging that some things have gone wrong that you should have done, and this can be coming from you. I mean, you can be representing a business, a brand, an organization, a government, or whatever. But it's strategic communication that enables you to say those things without making it about yourself, and in a way that, and that's the science. The science is, I have this very difficult message to pass on. If I don't, I have to first understand what the sensitivities are, understand the audience that I'm speaking to, and then determine, based on my knowledge of the audience and the issue and the history and the context, what is the best language, tone of voice, words that I can use to pass on this message in such a way that it can, first of all, mitigate risk, the kind of negative reaction or sentiment that should ordinarily or naturally come, or that is already in existence. This douses the tension. So at that point, you're not talking, you see everything I've said. I've not talked about us, the organization, or the bearer of the message. Is audience centric, is audience first. PR is not like that. PR thinks primarily about us. And even when it looks at the audience, okay, that's not actually correct. PR also thinks a lot about the audience and the stakeholders, but it's always in a positive sense. You know what I mean? It's always very much in that, image and perception thing. Whereas in communication, sometimes you are going to pass on a message that the person that is listening to you will think worse of you after. But you've told yourself that this is something I must say. But you want to say it in such a way that when the person receives it, it's not that the person will be positive, but at least the person will respect the fact that you had the guts and the authenticity to tell them. I don't know if I'm communicating. That's what strategic communication does for you. And you do that because you're protecting your reputation in the long term. And there's a bigger picture that you're looking at, that you're saying, whatever this current situation is, let me accept that there will be a little bit of a, we're going to pass through a hard time. But at the end of the day, we will be able to say that we were the first to bring this information to light. We were not, we didn't wait until somebody else, it's strategic. That's the point. But if you have, and it is the situation that necessitates your taking that kind of strategic communications, gives you that leeway. But if you are somebody that you are PR minded, your leaders are PR minded, even when you are supposed to tell people that something is happening, let's assume there's a pandemic, you're supposed to have warned people. Because you don't want to say anything that is not good news, you will not, you will use PR. No, let's not tell them. No, people will, there is no way that thing will not eventually come. So, and you will be, by the time if people now realize, and they will find out you were aware before and you didn't do anything, So, trusted advisor communications of the 21st century, it is not done that way. There are times for PR when we have events, when we have guests, we have protocol, but not in those situations. That's why I said you need to know when you need to drop your PR hat and put on the communications cap, and vice versa. And there are times when you need to also pull off the communications cap and put on the PR hat. Are you with me? Good. Now, very connected to that, point number 3. PR is very much about image and perception. I've talked about that. It's everything. That's what PR is concerned about. It elevates it to a very high level. Everything about PR, when you go, whether it's marketing PR, brand PR, and it's a good thing, because really, like if I'm launching a new brand, do I want to be telling you bad stories on that day? No, that's not the time for it. It's the time for me to talk about everything. It's not like when we go for birthdays and we go to funerals, particularly in my part of the world, everybody says what is good about that person. Hardly you see somebody saying this guy was a stingy person, or he had many, he was very deceitful. Nobody's going to say that. They're going to talk about all the good things that person has done, because they don't think that that's not the forum for it, except the person was extremely bad. That hardly happens. But that's what I'm saying. So PR is what you do in those sort of contexts. But then there are some contexts where it's important to balance the messaging. Communications gives you that leeway, and this is really a mindset. It's a practice thing. It's a skills and competence things. It's also an exposure thing, because I think if you don't even know what strategic communications can do, you are more likely to fall into the PR mode, because PR is much longer in the profession. And most people know PR. Everybody, but people use it. They say, his PR is very good. But hardly when you hear someone say, their comms is very good, you know that person, he understands. So I honestly believe that our political leaders, they don't even know what comms is, because all they do is PR. And they think that there's no difference. That's why I, as SA&A and as SA, as a personal brand, and as we as part of and me being the face of the corporate brand and the corporate brand, we are committed to continuing to advocate for the understanding of the distinction between the two, because they serve two different purposes. In some situations, PR is the best thing. You have presidents visiting, you had better use your PR. You have royal fathers coming. PR and protocol is everything. But in some other settings, it is strategic communications. And they work together. In a event and a campaign, there are portions in which the communications will work all the messaging, but the delivery of the messaging, the protocol, the experiential pieces will be handled by PR. The messaging will be part in the event and everything, but you won't leave everything on the messaging level. There'll be that personal touch that the PR people and their teams will work with. Everything works together. Even you in your writing of the messaging, is the PR mindset will go into your messaging, and the whole experience and the visual expression of what you're doing. So it will all work together. But there are some points at which PR will go on his own track and leave you. In the meet and the greet, in the protocols, in the in the VIP experiences, PR at that point, PR just leaves you and goes off on his own, even though there's a holistic strategy. and comms would have to take the back seat in that space, even though there is consistency in messaging. But in the on because even if the messaging, for instance, doesn't, is the PR person has the opportunity to adapt if anything happens that maybe somebody reacts badly to the messaging at that point. The PR person, who is the person on ground, will have to solve it in the best way that they can. So everything works together. This is also number 4. I think I've talked about that. Is in person, is experiential, it's relational, it prioritizes in-person relationship. And again, I tried to give some examples here of how this works out. So if there's a new movie release or something, you will have you have the comms that will go out, the messaging that will go out, oh, this trailer is coming out, the digital trailers that you'd have done, put it on YouTube, all the social media, blah blah blah. But then the PR part, and some people call some of that PR, but me, I see it as a comms thing, because the development of the assets, the decision about which audiences, who you are going to target, where it's going to be, it's very much in comms. There's a PR element in that you are promoting, and that is there. But if you are the sitting down to decide what messaging should go where, not just throwing content out without a scientific look at it, that is hardcore comms. So it's possible that one person is the person doing both things, but then the person should know, is my comms mindset that I'm using to do the messaging, and I'm also adding some of my PR understanding. But there are some areas, for instance, the red carpet interviews, the podcast, all of that is PR. Comms works is on, will also support that. Red carpet interview, 100% PR, well, to a very large extent. But then if you have a script you're working towards, comms can also give you that script to work with. But a lot of what you are doing, because the dressing, how you show up, man, that is PR. How you talk to the people on the red carpets, how you manage yourself in front of the camera, that is PR. The messaging will help you in terms of the delivery, but anyway, at that point, I think it's PR comms. I'll say 80% PR and 20% messaging. So everything is integrated, but at some point you are leaning on to one and leaning on to the other. Why this is also important for us as PR and comms professionals, or comms, or whichever you are, is that so you understand where your strengths lie. For some people, they like all those red carpet things. And I say it, if your job is 80% comms, which is sitting down, writing messages, creating content, strategy documents, plans, KPIs, metrics, and all of that research and what, but you are the kind of person that likes to attend events and being on red carpet, you are in the wrong job. Because and what I've seen happen in those jobs is that those people that are PR people that end up in comms jobs, they end up ignoring all the things they're supposed to be doing, and they focus all their energy. So rather than spending 80% of their time doing the comms piece of aspect of their work and 20% of PR, they will flip it over and now deprioritize that. They will change the flow, and at the end of the day, their bosses will be very unhappy. I've seen this happen in about 2 cases where this happened to this person, and at the end of the day, the person said, oh, but I've been very busy. But then they were like, but look at all this work that has been left undone. So what the person was doing was the things that the person didn't like to do, the person was deprioritizing them, regardless of how much, whether they were prioritized by the organization. So as comms people, again, like I said, all these things happen because people don't really know the differentiations within our practice area is not really well known. Most people don't know that there's a difference between that there are PR people and there are comms people. There are people who are PR and comms, but there are few. There are very few people that will say are 50-50. I've met a couple, but there are very few. I am more of a comms person than a PR person, even though I have both inside of me. If you see me in a PR setting, but yeah, I won't choose to be there. It's something that I have to do. But then I know it, so that's kind of thing. But I'm more of comms. I'm like 80% comms. Anyway, so communications focuses on reaching and influencing and targeting the hearts of mind, irrespective of presence, proximity, or location. Both are working towards the same goal, but in different ways. So again, this relates to number 5, relates to what I said earlier. PR struggles to communicate hard truths. This is true. PR finds it very difficult, public relations, because by nature is positive in tone. In fact, when we say, oh, PR, when people say someone's PR is good and somebody's PR is bad, so it's like it's expected that it's supposed to be good all the time. Communications, when we say communications is good, when you communicate what you intended to, is about intent and outcomes, or objective and outcome. It's not about whether what you are saying is good or bad. There is no good or bad per se in communications. Although let me nuance that a bit. Communications is said to be good when what I wanted to say is what I said. Whether the message was palatable, was not palatable, that's not the issue. The point was, did I get the outcome I got? Is that what I wanted? So I always tell people, I say, look, if your communications, like you put out a media release and it made people more angry afterwards. Except your objective was to annoy people, then your communications has failed. And this, I think, is why communications evolved from PR. Because by the time social media, the internet, and everything came up, people realized that you cannot just be talking down to people, because PR is really about this is what I want to say. It is when you get to strategic prep that people now start saying, okay, it's not just what I want to say, but then how is this going to be received? And because I was in the working environment when all of this happened, I actually saw that shift. Because when I entered the field in 1990, it was heavily PR. There was nothing like comms. It was always we go everywhere. Oh, we are good. We are this. That was all we were. We were, and of course, people in the organization just look at us like these people, because we were always everything was campaign, everything was promotional, everything was positive. It was much later when, because then if an organization tells you this is what it is, you can't challenge the organization. You don't have information. There was nothing like internet. If the government doesn't tell you anything, you don't know what's going on. If the media doesn't report it, you don't know what's going on. But now that once social media came in, institutions and companies and businesses realize that they are no longer the intermediaries for information. Somebody within their company can leak something. People can tap into their system and release it on the internet. You know what I mean? And we've seen cases of that even in Nigeria up to this week, where unintended information is coming out, and everybody is seeing it on social media. So in that kind of world, you need a more adaptable and flexible approach to communication, one that can help you in all kinds of scenarios. So that was when the whole concept of strategic communications came up. I think this happened around 2008 globally. And then, a definition, some scholars, because the definition that we use for strategic communication, which is the purposeful use of communication by businesses, organizations, and institutions to achieve or to fulfill their mission, that definition came up by Hallahan and some other scholars in 2007. Before then, there wasn't a well-known definition for the concept. But PR since the 1900s. So it was really the internet that brought this need, because the internet, the information age, and all of that, and all of the complexity that it has brought. So they now realize that since you cannot deceive all the people all the time, there are times when you have to communicate information. You cannot lie about it. How do we communicate that information? That is what strategic communications does. It does not talk about, it's not about how do we spin it or how do we make sure we come out of this looking good. Yes, you do think about your reputation, but long term, not reputation of let's just lie to get out of this and then tomorrow. I mean, we've seen some cases. I mean, sometimes I don't like to name things in Nigeria, because there's a way you name it is like you are just getting personal, and people can be very sensitive about things, and that's not the purpose. But in Nigeria, we've seen some spinning. Oh my goodness, we've seen some major. I mean, we've seen cases where people will come. In fact, this is a good example. What we see in the public sector, where they will launch a PR campaign and claim that a project has been done, tell all the good stories. Everything is a pack of lies. But did they or did they not have a PR event? They did. And immediately after the so-called commissioning, they've done the canopies and everything falls to the ground. What happens to their reputation? In the mud. If a PR mindset will not find anything wrong with that, because they've done their campaign, the media headlines have gone out that they commissioned something, that some people are now saying afterwards that the water didn't run more than one day or whatever. That is nothing for them. But they forget that people remember. But a strategic communicator will tell you, no, we cannot do this. That even after this, you have to think about tomorrow. So anyway, I mean, that's a little bit of a digression from what we're talking about here. But this is just saying that when you have a hard truth to communicate, there's no positive spin to it. Use your communications lens. Don't even try to be PR promotional about it. It's a serious conversation. It's like you are going to an AGM and you're telling people that we did not make any money. You better not be, because if you are not careful, you have to really use the science of and the art of communication to get it out. And you're not sugarcoating things. Don't put yourself under pressure to weave a positive spin at the expense of credibility and trust. And strategic communications gives you that leeway. PR does not. I don't want to say more, because I'm just repeating the same thing. But if you have any views contrary, please ask me questions so that your questions can then make me expand and even think even better. So number six, PR leans more on personal insights, flair, and intuition, which is a positive thing. Again, so which is why, like, when if you're a company that you do a lot of PR things, you really have to look for those people who have that personal insights and flair, because PR is so personal that, in fact, some people, like, if you're somebody that deals like with celebrities, or very VIPs, VVIPs, and all of that, and you have a PR and comms team, you tend, if you notice that there is one member of your team that all the VVIPs like, you had better keep that person on that beat, because it's a personal touch thing. But communications is agnostic. It's about the messaging. We don't. First of all, the communications is the messaging is even sent from such a distance that it really doesn't matter, who says it per se, so long as the voice and the face is the right person and the medium is correct. It's not so much a personal touch thing. It's the message that is actually doing the connection for you in the. So it can come from somebody speaking from afar. It could also come from the internet. It could come from a press statement. It doesn't have to be personally with you there and there. But in PR, and like I put in here, personal touch and flair and individual style is inherent to the PR practice. And no two PR practitioners handle PR the same way. And as I said, even in the same company, you may have a team of 3, 4 people. There are certain people who say, please, you manage the high table, because you know that it's a high pressure area. That other person is good at PR, but may not have the temperament. The people at the high table may not even like that person. So you have to, PR is very personal. But in comms, who cares who produced the brochure? Who cares who created the content? We don't even like the person. Well, the person can do the job. But in PR, likability is very, very important. Is so important. I think that's a very important distinction. I think I should actually have put that as a number 8. But anyway, let's just pack it with that one. So finally, and this is, like I said, this is just 7 things that I could think about. I'm sure there are many more. So if you have any more, like number 8, 9, 10, please share. Let's see it. So PR uses big data and analytics differently. Initially, I said PR doesn't use big data that much, and then I was fact checked by Gemini, Google Gemini. They said no, they actually use, but that they use it differently. It also acknowledged that yes, communications tends to use more. Communication is very much evidence based, data driven. Before you're starting everything, you're getting the data because we're not making any assumptions. But PR most of the time works, with people that are already known, with a group of people that we already know what their proclivities are, what their preferences are. Sometimes so PR uses big data when it's going to do big things like marketing, PR, and all of that. But there's a point at which it will still rely on human intuition. If it turns out that, for instance, I could do a PR research that is giving me a certain feedback. If it is an audience or a market that I'm very familiar with, you can't just now discard your intuition and your insights completely for data. No, you have to find a way to marry the two. If you have had personal experience with them and what you are going to do is something that requires that same personal experience, if your research and your data, so you have to put the two together. That's what I'm saying. In comms, intuition and all of that plays out less. What we comes really focuses more on the evidence, the data. What is the data telling us? And even if you have intuition, it's not something that your data must confirm that intuition to a very large extent. And the reason why communications can do that is because, like I said, it's not being delivered personally. But then, even if communications prescribes and is over a high level strategy, like I said, it has to be data based because you cannot afford to make errors. There will be a portion of it that will be the PR plan. That is when the intuition and the story and all of the creativity and all of that can come in. Creativity also comes into comms. So that's not so. What I really want to hammer on there is the fact that the PR, when you, even no matter what the strategy says, of course you will not go against the strategy, but when you are bringing it down to a tactical level, intuition plays a very strong role. It's not, and it's when I use the word creativity, is also, I mean, adaptability and flexibility in terms of how you deliver it personally. So I hope that is a bit I hope that's a bit clear. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you on my next video. And please sign up for our courses. We look forward to having you. Yeah, so that's it. So tell me what you think about public relations and communications on this video. Do you think these differences that I've highlighted are valid? And yes, please follow our pages on LinkedIn, wherever it is that you're watching this. And if it's YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Thank you so much. And stay positive and well. Thank you.